Staying Alive UK. Share your story.
Hello and welcome to the Share Your Story podcast series, a business biography, their story so far. I'm Michael D. Groot and I'm your host. My purpose through this podcast series is to inspire you to take the next step towards your new business venture or indeed develop your existing business even further. I only interview business owners who employ less than 9 employees, and mostly they will be on their own. So let's get straight to it. And I'm delighted to have with me today on the podcast Phil Gerbyshak. Now, let me tell you first of all a little bit about Phil. Phil delivers training programs to integrate social selling and technology to grow businesses. He's the Chief Digital Officer for Vengreso, where he works with sales teams to help them lead more confidently and communicate more effectively across digital platforms and generations. Phil enables salespeople to augment existing sales processes with LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, and social selling micro tactics, and teaches them how to use technology in more effective ways. He also provides coaching and consulting to grow your business online and offline. And my favorite quote by Phil is, "Make the right friends first and do business last." Welcome to the Share Your Story podcast, Phil. How are you today?
I am terrific, Michael. It is so great to spend some time with you today. Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. And I'm an amazing, raving fan of yours because I listen to your podcast regularly and I get so much value from it. So I really, really appreciate you coming and joining me on the Share Your Story podcast.
Yeah, my pleasure. Really, my pleasure for sure.
Absolutely. Well, listen, what we do always, we start off to learn a little bit about our guest and a little bit about their personal life. Where were they born? Where do they now live? A little bit about your education. If you want to share about your family, you can, but you don't have to. You know, your hobbies and interests, just so that everybody gets a good feel who Phil is, where has he come from to begin with. So over to you, Phil.
Sure. So, well, I was born in a little town in northern Wisconsin, town of, 700-800 people, and grew up, spent 16 of my 18 years before I graduated high school in a little town called Crivitz, Wisconsin. And I'm actually going back there next week for my 25th class reunion. So that tells everybody how old I am. But 996 people in Crivitz. It's really interesting. Growing up, it was so small in northern Wisconsin. We didn't even have a stoplight, Michael.
So we call that Hickville, USA, correct?
Sure. Yeah, it could be Hickville. Yeah, it could be. Lots of different things you could call it. We'll take Hickville. That's pretty polite.
Yes.
So yeah.
Wow, that's super small. Amazing.
It is. Yeah. So it's interesting. I mean, my mom was a waitress, and a certified nursing assistant, and did other things. My dad was a dairy farmer. He milked cows and worked, 14 to 16 hours a day. My parents got divorced in 1980 or 81 when I was very young. So I've had, kind of two families my whole life, and I have two younger brothers that I'm extremely proud of. One is a school teacher in Seattle, and one of them is a salesman in Milwaukee that he's slinging trans every day. So he sells remanufactured transmissions for a fantastic company, and I'm very proud of both of them. They both have just amazing children and wonderful wives. So I'm proud of them. And so that was my life when I was growing up, real little, and had to go in the Navy out of high school. And I say had to because I knew there were bigger things for me. I just didn't know what the heck they were. Because in a small town, I mean, there's very little opportunity. In fact, in 8th grade, my guidance counselor, as I was looking at to schedule for freshman year, said, you should just take the easier math because it's pretty likely that you're just going to end up working at the gas station anyway. So just take the easy math, and you don't need to, you don't need to study so hard. It's going to be just fine.
That's incredible. for a teacher to say, yeah, you're not going to get very far in life.
Yeah. Well, it's funny though, but I think about that. It'd be a stretch to say every day, but when I hear people tell me I can't do something, I just think back to my guidance counselor and I think about, if I'd have listened to him, I don't know who I'd be. So I'm going to say, you know what? I'm going to try this. In fact, not only am I going to try this, I'm going to put everything I have behind it. And I think that's served me pretty well over the 43 years of my life, is I've always wanted to show people that, yes, it can be done regardless of circumstance, regardless of how I was raised, regardless of the fact that, my family was poor. My mom made $1.61 an hour as a waitress. My stepdad worked at, like a odds and ends hardware store making, $5.50, $6.50 an hour, top end. So I've been pretty fortunate that spurred me on, that I use that as fuel instead of as something to burn me to the ground.
And yeah, so in some respects, you should be grateful to that teacher.
Absolutely. Every day.
Yeah. Because he inspired you to be better than what he thought you could be, basically. You proved him wrong. So good for you. Well done. So you went into the Navy. What happened then?
So I went in the Navy in 1992, back before the internet started. And I had an email account. I delivered email by hand. That was actually my job in the Navy.
Wow.
Yeah. Yep, I was a human distribution list. So if you can imagine back in 93, having one computer per building, one computer per unit, one computer per, for 100 people, for 500 people, for 1,000 people. So it was my job to read the message and say, okay, well, here's one for Michael. And here's one for the captain, and here's one for Phil, and here's one for everybody. So it really was my job to make copies of the messages and hand them off, because frankly, we weren't super digital at the time. We had a high impact dot matrix printer that by the time I left, we figured out how to make it print on 7-ply paper, so we no longer had to make copies.
Oh yes, I do remember those. Yeah, you could get all these with the holes down the sides. And
exactly.
And you could get so many copies of them. Yeah, that was incredible. That was such a breakthrough that you didn't have to use the copier because it printed X number of copies. Oh, wow. Yeah, I do remember these days. I'm sorry to say.
Yeah, well, that was early internet. I mean, if we think about that, people, so much that we take for granted now. I mean, Michael, the fact that we now have a video phone in our pocket all day long is so Jetson-like. Remember the Jetsons show?
Totally. Yeah, absolutely.
And now we just take it for granted.
Yeah.
Now we take that for granted. I mean, I have, my niece and nephew that are out in Seattle. When we talk, I mean, I think he's 7 or 8. He's, by the time people listen, he'll probably be 8 years old. He presses the FaceTime button and immediately we're connected. Lukey and Uncle Phil are having a chat. That's pretty crazy stuff.
It is.
Right? That's pretty space aged. But I think back to 1993 and I think back to, I had a roommate who had a modem who connected to the internet. He hacked the building to get into the phone line and would connect to the internet at 2,400 baud. In an hour and a half, we could download a single picture from a bulletin board system.
Wow. Oh, that's crazy. Oh, that's such a wonderful memory to have.
Yeah, and think about how far we've come. Think about how, I get frustrated if my telephone now doesn't download a web page in less than 5 seconds and I go on to the next one.
Oh, totally. I tested my website. I got an email from Google saying, test your website. And it's saying, oh, no, it loaded in 12 seconds. That's far too slow. You need to fix it.
Think about that, right? How much do we take for granted now, though? That's so crazy.
Yeah, I do as well. I get annoyed when websites don't load or, if LinkedIn is slow or, I just get, oh, what's going on?
Exactly.
So, okay, so you were doing that in the Navy and then what happened?
So as I said, the internet was so slow, and I worked for the National Security Agency over in Seoul, Korea, the NSA that listens, not the ones who talk. Mm-hmm. And so I really thought the internet was going to go away at 9600 baud, which we finally got when I was in Korea. So it was 4 times faster than it was when I was in California. 4 times faster, 9600 baud. I was like, this internet is fake. So I went to school to be a school teacher, actually. So my first public email address, believe it or not, Michael, and my first public website was teacher@UWM for UW-Milwaukee.edu.
Oh, wow.
And I had a website dedicated to the 80s, and it was there. Yeah, it was there that I thought, boy, this is some power. The fact that I would get people to reach out to me on my little website, because back then, the only way that you would find a website address, there was no Google.
No.
There was no anything. You had to be told about it. So I posted in a bulletin board system on a BBS on 80s.general about my website and invited to feedback. And I remember I had a hit counter on there, and I remember getting my first 7 hits, which I think probably 5 of them were me.
Yes. I love it. Yeah. You were a pioneer in the internet age. There's no question about it.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting. I think back, I actually helped launch Buckner and Garcia, who did the song Pac-Man Fever on CD. They were a jukebox hit, and then they came out on CD, and they sent me a copy of their CD, 2 copies, one to give away and one to mention on my site, and then also Schoolhouse Rock on DVD. Now, I didn't even have a DVD player at the time. Computers did not have DVD players. The CD-ROMs didn't spin fast enough to play DVDs.
That's right.
So, yeah. Yeah, that was the good old days. That's how I got started on the internet, and I started seeing that power. And that was really the first time. I don't know that I could call that social media, because comments came in via email. There was no comment forum. In fact, I thought Seth Godin was a genius, because every day I thought he hand coded his site to update it with a new article.
Yeah. Yeah, we probably did think that. Yeah, I mean, I do remember that too. You thought, oh my God, people have got websites. How do they do that? Oh, I've got to be a coder in order to do that. I can't do it. Wow. So, okay. So when were you doing this? So when you left the Navy, or I'm losing track a little bit of your timeline now. So what happened next?
Yep. So we're up to 90. We're up there. So I got out of the Navy in 96. I played on the internet till 99. And then at the end of 99, I had been I dropped out of college. I was working at an internet service provider. I remember having, I wanted to buy some .coms, but frankly, .coms were really expensive. It was $155 a year to get them. There were only 4 domain registrars on the planet, 2 cows, and Network Solutions and a couple others.
Yeah.
So I didn't even I would use free hosting, because if I could get 10 megabytes of free space, that was pretty cool. So I started that, and then at the end of 99, I thought, you know what, I should sell. I should do more sales, because I was selling digital subscriber line, but frankly, we struggled to get the lines provision. So I went and I was a stockbroker until 2001, actually, till 9/11 happened. Wow. Yep. So I did that. I helped with online trading back before E-Trade and Scottrade and all these had these amazingly powerful systems. My team, I had some extremely smart people on, including a gentleman by the name of Vinny Carpenter, who we created an automated review and release system. There were so few stocks traded that we could actually upload a CSV file every day of what the marginable securities were. So that meant, every trade would try to clear. So we went from the only way that something would automatically flow through in your account was if you actually had the cash to buy it, to understanding margin and doing some complex calculations via a CGI and a Perl script. And it was pretty crazy. I mean, now you'd look at that, it was like so rudimentary. I remember, I actually pulled that back up when I left corporate America 10 years after we started that. And I thought, wow, this is really juvenile, but yet it is super effective. So I did that. And then, like I said, 9/11 happened, and I really reevaluated my life and said, I don't know that I want to be a stockbroker. I don't know that I want to do this. And the market really was bad. So I got a job I got a job in IT, actually, because I'm a pretty good communicator verbally. So if people call me, I can patiently explain to them how to fix their computer, even if they're the problem. So
switch off and switch back on again.
Yeah. Well, yeah. So back then, right, 2001, 2002, 2003, the fact that, we would actually preload our message with, while you're waiting on hold, have you thought about rebooting your computer?
Yeah.
Did you know that 75% of problems are fixed by a simple reboot of your computer? Why don't you give that a try? And we'll be with you just as soon as we can.
The reason I mention it is that somebody on Twitter I'm connected to shared Seth Godin, and because you just mentioned him, his little blog post or something, and I can't remember now if it was him or somebody else now, but somebody wrote the whole thing about anything to do with IT. If you go into the Genius Bar in the Apple Store, that's the first thing they ask you. Have you rebooted it? And very often people are able to just, reboot the iPhone or the Mac or whatever, and it works again. And of course, we know that's the Microsoft standard for centuries.
Yeah. Yeah. To get just quickly technical here, if you think about it, we have to reboot ourselves. So why not our computer? But we don't think about it. I mean, our car doesn't run 24/7, 365. Why the heck would our computers? So it seems like common sense now that we would say that. But back then, we had no idea. We thought, turning it off meant we turned the monitor off, not the whole thing. So it's just amazing how much smarter we've gotten in really less than 20 years on the internet.
Yeah, totally. Okay. So you got into IT and the internet. What next?
So the internet happened. 9/11 happened. I was a VP of IT. I got promoted, and then in 2004, I joined this thing called LinkedIn because I wanted the 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon. I wanted to connect to other people. In fact, I want to say my first connection was actually Bob Berg, who is now a very dear friend of mine and who I admire more than I can even tell you, Michael. Bob Berg is remarkable. He's got so much kindness and generosity, and I was like, wow, how can I can connect to these folks. And then in 2005, I started my blog. It was actually, the date was 03/04/05. I'll never forget that as long as I live. Right. So
that's
3, 4,
amazing.
5. Yeah. Yep, it was pretty crazy because Scott Ginsburg told me that I should start a blog. So Scott is the guy with the name tag. If you go to hellomynameisscott.com, I'm sure it's still up. He's got a name tag tattoo that says Scott because it's all about making people approachable. And I called Scott and I said, hey, I want to write a book. How do I do it? And he said, get off your butt and start a blog.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So it's Scott's fault. It's really Scott's fault, I would say, that we're talking today, Michael, because without him, I'd have never had a blog, and I likely would have stayed in IT the rest of my life.
Yeah. So that was that launched you on your own then, or? No.
So good question. So interestingly enough, what happened is I was starting a blog. I would write and I would share my articles with my boss and share my articles with some folks and share them with my team. And, because I got challenged by a guy by the name of Kirk Wiesler who said, it's great that you're smart, but how are you helping anybody else be smart? He said, you should share the things that you learn. And I said, well, boy, that's a freaking novel idea. Okay, I'll share this stuff I learned. That coupled with Scott is the reason that I started writing. And so I did. And I was in corporate. And then my boss says to me, she goes, you can't say that you work here online. I said, what do you mean? She said, well, if you say that you work here, you wrote the policy, dude. You know that means we have to police you. But if you don't say it, well, nobody will know where you work. So just leave it off. Just don't even mention it. I'm like, okay, that's interesting. All right. And I said, well, heck, I can't just be Phil Gerbyshak floating out in outer space. I need to start a company. So I started the Make It Great Institute. That was the name of my company, because I was committed to making it great, right? Choosing your attitude, choosing things, and really to choose is to change. And that's what I taught people, is how to choose and how to change. And being in IT, I mean, it made perfect sense. I would get on the phone and people would, I would choose to help them calm down and choose to help them think rationally and then choose to do something different. And, with LinkedIn, it was the same way. I had to teach that mindset first. Even, for a lot of people, they were very worried about putting all their contacts online. Can you imagine what would happen, Michael, if I knew who your friends were?
Yeah.
How horrible would that be?
I know. There was a lot of fear over that. There's no question about it. Yeah.
Yep. There still is, I would say. But it was worse. It was worse 10 years ago. I mean, back in 2006, 2007, when LinkedIn started out, we were all worried about this privacy. What happens if this cloud-based company, are they going to steal all of our contact information? What are they doing?
Yeah.
Well, here, a quick clue, folks. Last year, LinkedIn got bought by Microsoft for $26 billion. That's billion with a B, boys and girls. $1 billion. Yes. Come on, right?
Yeah. It's incredible because, I mean, it's really down to Facebook, I believe, that people started to get more relaxed about their contact details and their personal details and their business details. So Facebook really made it, although again, it was very public, but it gave people more comfort, so you had to feel comfortable first with your personal stuff before you could then share your business stuff. That's my view of it anyway.
Yeah, no, I think you're totally right. And it's funny how Facebook is now is exactly how America Online was 15 years ago, 10 years ago.
Wow.
It's exactly the same, right? They're trying to wall the garden off. They've got their own advertising network.
Yeah.
They're promoting things. I mean, seriously, you can never leave Facebook. Even trying to deactivate your account, you're never going to leave. And it's so fascinating because people, they railed at America Online. Oh, it's horrible. We're stuck in the ecosystem.
Yeah.
And now guess what? In developing countries, Facebook is actually giving internet access to just Facebook, just like AOL did, except it's not via CD now. Now it's via device. It's very interesting how things are. Everything is, to quote Scott Stratton, right? Everything has changed and nothing is different.
No, there's nothing really unique. It's all been done before, but it's just a different way of doing it. So, yeah, fabulous. Yep. Okay, so Make It Great Institute was launched then. You had your blog. You were teaching people how to make it great in their business.
Yep. How to be a valuable person. Really, the whole social media mindset for me started back a long time ago. My grandmother instilled it in me, but when digital went big, or at least it went big for me in my brain, and LinkedIn started being there, I realized that if I started out by asking people to do business with me, well, first of all, I didn't really have much of a business. Teaching people to use something that they didn't know anything about is like teaching the Pope to be Jewish. It's not, doesn't make a lot of money. So I said, well, I'm just going to be a helpful person. So I started out, just connecting to people, and I would read their stuff and I would comment on their stuff and I would teach people to do the exact same thing. And then really, when Twitter came along, Twitter, as much as powerful as Facebook is today, Twitter was the most powerful discovery engine I think I've ever seen, because you could post a question out back in 2006, 7, and 8. You post a question out and people actually thought you were talking just to them and they would reply to it and answer your question. And it was remarkable because it was the first non-reciprocal social network, and by that I mean I could follow you, you could follow me, but we didn't have to follow each other and we could keep up with each other very easily and still have conversations, and you never had to give me your email address. So I could just find you. It was so remarkable and so helpful and so great. I mean, still some of my favorite people that I interact with are because of Twitter.
Yeah. That's true, actually. Twitter still, I guess, is a little bit different to everybody else. and you wonder whether should they have gone in the direction of everybody else, and therefore would they have been more profitable and bigger by now? Who knows? So I really, really love the ethos that you have and that you are just alluding to and mentioning, which is, helping people, but also, communicating, sharing their stuff, giving them information. So it's very different from some people out there who focus very much on what can I get out of people rather than what can I give to them. So, yeah, I love that. So well done to you. Well done to you.
Thank you.
And
thanks.
Okay, so we're now still in Make It Great.
Yeah, we're still Make It Great. And I quit my job, gave my 2-year notice in 2008. I left my job in 2010.
2-year notice?
Yeah, I did. Yep. I told my boss. We met for my annual meeting in October of 2008. And she said, so Phil, what's next? You've written, at the time I'd written 2 books. I was working on a few others. I'd contributed to Age of Conversation, the first three versions of that. I've, got mentioned in books and stuff. And so she said, so what's next? As a VP of IT. And she said, so do you want my job? Do you want to be the chief technology officer? Are you looking to, go to a different company and eventually be a CEO? I said, no, I really love it here, but, I'm going to go do my own thing. So I'm going to give you my 2-year notice. I'm done in 18 or 24 months. And so she said, great. That means in addition to everything that you're doing, you also get to find your replacement. So thank you, Cindy, for that. That was fantastic. And interestingly enough, the next summer, I was part of the group that completely reorganized the IT department. We went from an organization of about 87 to an organization of 110. And I want to say now that company has an IT organization probably of about 200 or 250. It's pretty crazy. But yeah, I gave my 2-year notice and I kept doing my thing. And the agreement that we had was that, it's all about integrity. So don't do your personal work at work and don't do your work at home. Like keep them separate. It's totally cool. And, use your paid time off however you want. And just as long as you do a great job, it's no big deal. And it's fascinating because most people, if they give a 2-year notice, they'd be gone. Like their boss would say, well, get lost. And my boss said, I trust you to be in integrity and I trust you to do what you say you're going to do. So do that. And just keep kicking butt. And I can tell you, Michael, it's fascinating because a lot of people, they didn't even think I was leaving right up until it was formally announced, which was 6 weeks before I left. A lot of people, even though I told them, because I had a lot of relationships in the organization, I didn't tell them personally, but I told them like, hey, your project isn't due until September and I'm leaving June 1st. So I'm not the right person to be involved. And they'd be like, no, we want you on the project team. I'm like, no, I'm not going to be here. I'm not going to be the person that launches your project here. And they'd be, no, and so I'd sit in a meeting and they'd be like, so who's responsible for this? And I'd like, I'd say, okay, well, this person on my team is going to do this. They're like, well, what are you going to do? I said, nothing. I'm leaving. Hello. Yeah. So even the IT department, it's so funny to me because I was running the PowerPoint slides when we announced it that came up with my team with no head, no Phil Gerbyshak at the head of it. And so people came up to me after the meeting, Phil, I'm so sorry you got fired.
Oh.
Like, who? What? Who are you talking to? Come on. Really? I got fired? They're going to let me run the deck and I got fired? Are you joking? Come on. Right? No, I did not get fired. I left because I feel like I've made my contribution. It's time to go. So in 2010, I launched to go full time. I thought I was going to be a management and leadership and communications consultant. And frankly, and IT. And frankly, social media just took over my entire life because people, that's what they wanted to know about. Now it's fascinating how now things have come kind of full circle. And now, you mentioned my title as the Chief Digital Officer of Vengreso. A lot of my work is to help people be more productive with their smartphones, to be more productive on the internet, to understand how to use video. And yes, of course, to learn how to sell socially. But social selling is not selling. It's really social to get them to have a conversation with you offline so that you earn the right to sell them something.
Yeah.
It is not about selling people online. The more you try to sell online, the more trouble you're going to get into. So instead, it really gets back to that mindset of, I want to give first. I want to find out what your needs are first. And then if there's a fit, then we can transact business offline, not the other way.
Yeah. Totally correct. Totally true. And so did you, my question is, did you last the full 2 years or did you leave earlier?
Well, I lasted 18 months. I promised 18. Yep. I promised 18 or 24 months. Yeah. I gave my notice in October. And so that's, let's say there's 2 months left of the year, and I left as of June. So I actually lasted almost 20 months.
Wow. And what, are you allowed to say the company's name, or you prefer?
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, they're Robert W. Baird. Yep, they're one of the. Yeah, if you look at the Fortune Best Places to Work, they've been recognized as one of the best places to work for, I want to say, 14 or 15 consecutive years, and they're just a fantastic company. The CEO at the time that I was there was a man by the name of Paul Purcell. He's since now he's the president. Steve Booth is the new CEO, and I'm just proud as punch of that organization. They didn't miss a beat. In fact, I would say they're probably thriving even more since I left, and they've just expanded all over the place. They have offices in the UK, all over the US.
Wow.
They've got international business. I'm super, super proud to say that I work there. Absolutely.
Have they hired you back to do some social selling training?
Well, let's put a plug in here, Mike.
Yeah, absolutely. They should, don't you think? Yeah. They absolutely should.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. So interestingly, I've coached a bunch of the advisors individually and nobody as a group. But yeah, absolutely. Now that I have Vengreso, right now that I scale, here's the thing. And this is why, one of the reasons why I joined Vengreso, why we decided to push our 7 companies together and make one massive, wonderful company that can serve people, is because now we can scale to an organization like a Robert W. Baird, where they have, 60 to 80 branch offices, where they all need a uniform training delivered to them so that they can all kind of march together. Now, that's not to say it's not customized to the individual. That's not what I'm telling you. But I'm saying the foundational stuff is really important. I call this getting dressed before you get busy. Right? We have to lay the foundation down because, frankly, first, nobody pays you to have a good LinkedIn profile. But if your LinkedIn profile isn't good, people are judging you.
Yeah.
It's the same way, if you go into a business meeting and you're dressed inappropriately, meaning different from what your customers expect to see of you, then you're not going to get the job. So you have to get dressed before you get busy, but nobody pays you for that. But it's really important, and then it's about, kind of aligning all the marketing stuff, all the sales stuff, and all the service delivery together, because all of that determines the customer experience. And only then can you think about the skill set, the tool set, and then, of course, really first is the mindset. You have to give value first. You have to turn up the value before you turn up the volume. Really, really important.
Brilliant. I love it. Now, so how long, because I know you're in Vengreso now, but you're running your own company, Make It Great. And please share with us some of the challenges you had in running your own business. And we're going to balance it. We also want to hear about the highlights, but share some of the challenges. What can people expect running their own business?
Well, running your own business, first of all, can be extremely lonely because everybody is your competition. And by everybody, I mean seriously everybody, because the status quo, to do nothing, is a choice against you. To do nothing is a choice against you. So to choose is to change. Now, even if you don't choose, you still may change. but people have to make a choice to work with you. And as a small business, it's real easy to say, you know what, Michael, not right now. No, I'm going to look at that in 90 days. I'll look at that in a year, whatever. And when you're talking to other small business owners, I mean, frankly, Michael, we have to choose between food and social selling training.
Yes.
Sometimes, right? I mean, we have to choose between food and advertising. I was talking to somebody yesterday who said, I'm starting to really get some traction with my work online, but I don't have the free cash right now to invest to promote my ads to scale this up. So that's really, really tough. I mean, so you go from being lonely to being cash poor, right? And because everybody's competition, everything is competition.
Yeah.
And I don't mean that in a cutthroat way. That's not what I mean. I just mean we're all competing for the same dollars.
Yeah.
Right? We're all competing for the same dollars. So even a graphic designer, and truth be told, I'm not a designer. I'm a terrible designer. I've been fortunate that I have some really smart designer friends, but people choose between, do I need a logo or do I need a website? Do I need a website or do I need a social selling strategy? Do I need a strategy or do I need to just know how to use the tools? So as a small business owner, sometimes we take the fastest path to cash, which isn't always the most lasting path to cash.
Yeah. Very, very valid point. Very okay. So those any others? Can you think of any other challenges?
So in addition to being lonely, in addition to everybody being your competition, in addition to cash flow, the other thing that's really hard is because you're so busy doing the work, right? You're delivering service or you're delivering product. Because you're doing that, often your own things suffer. So that means your health sometimes suffers, your relationships suffer, your online profile can suffer. And it's okay because, right, we all hear, it's all right. We joke the cobbler's kids don't have any shoes, which is okay until you're looking for new business that isn't referral based, right? Because if I'm teaching my salespeople that if somebody looks at your LinkedIn profile and you look like an amateur, you don't look like somebody doing business with, then why would anybody do business with you? If that's what I'm teaching and then my profile stinks, well, that's a problem, right? If it isn't up to date, if it's dusty, that's a problem. So that's the other problem is that our own things get out of date, which makes us irrelevant. And then the last problem that I'll share is sometimes we say yes as a small business when we should say no because, again, we're hungry.
Yeah.
We say take that client that we know is going to be a pain in the butt, that we know is just a little bit beyond our skill set because we need the money, and then we don't deliver, in which case now we can't get a referral from that client. And if we can't get a referral from that client, how are we going to get the next client? Because ultimately what we want is we want to do such a great job that when we're at that point of graciousness, when they're saying, Michael, thank you so much for your work. Is there anything else I can do for you? When we make that ask of, hey, would you connect me to anybody, that's like you in a similar situation? And if we're smart and we use LinkedIn Sales Navigator, we can pick out those 3 or 5 people and then shut up and let them either introduce us to them or a couple people that they know better. But if we didn't kick butt at that job, we haven't earned the right to ask for the referral. So we need to be really, really careful about that, especially, again, in a small business where we're hungry, where we're lonely, where somebody, comes in maybe as a referral, just a smidge outside our skill set, and we say yes when we should have said no, and then we get burned. And that just tears the business down. And then we're hungrier. So then we lower prices or we take more business we don't love. And I can tell you this has happened to me. I've had points in my business where I've had 40 cents left in my bank account. And heck, it's hard. It's hard to say, no, you're not the right fit for me. But sometimes, you keep your integrity. And that's a big word as a small business owner because that's all you have your integrity.
That's right.
If you keep that and you refer business away, and I can tell you for every piece of business that I get, I probably refer 5 pieces away. And sometimes I still screw up and I take bad business, but I refer plenty of business away because I'm not always the right choice.
No.
But when that happens, and I refer that business away, instead of being scarce and now, holy crap, I'm hungrier, I don't have any cash. Instead, what happens is that client will then refer business back to me and say, Phil, you and I weren't the right choice. But you know what? This other person, they seem to be a better fit for you. Would you, can I make an introduction for you?
Yeah, that's brilliant.
And we've never done business together, right? So that's pretty cool, and that works out pretty well.
Well, the great thing too is that this is really valuable stuff for all these wannabe business owners out there, and not only the business owners that want to be new business owners, but the existing business owners. They should be listening to this stuff too, and get even better at what they do. But the other thing is too, that when you decide, okay, that piece of business isn't right for me, rather than just taking it, you're leaving the space open for the right business to arrive. So if you take on the business that isn't right and you fill yourself up with being unhappy delivering that piece of business, the other great business can't come along because you're full. And
that's right.
So there's this whole, what you're describing is fear, really. And I think that is a massive thing in all small business owners, is that we walk around with a heap amount of fear most of the time, which we just need to make sure we squash every single day and just keep going. Okay, so those were some of the challenges. So if it's okay with you, let's have a look at some of the great things that have happened for you running your own business.
Sure. Well, the first thing is I get to pick my schedule, which makes me extremely happy. Yes. As a VP of IT, I worked from the time I got up until the time I went to bed most days. And that meant a lot of very long days. And I would work straight through because in addition to doing the work in corporate America, you have to, it's this thing called FaceTime, right? People expect to see you. So even, I would have days where, we would have our London office would have a problem at 4 a.m. local time in Wisconsin, which, that's the middle of the trading day on the London Stock Exchange. They're not going to be like, oh, Phil, just get a couple more hours of sleep. Whenever you get to it, get it.
Yes.
That's not how that works, right? They're not like, oh, yeah, that's great that you're in Wisconsin. Oh, we understand. No. Get your butt out of bed and get to work. So even if I would get to work, some days 4:30, 5 o'clock in the morning,
wow,
I would still have to stay until 5 or 6 o'clock, even if my work was done. And that's something about corporate America I think is going to have to change. But as a small business owner, even now, right, I get to set my own hours, which means, I can do this interview at 9 in the morning local time because I'll just plan my work around it. It's no problem, right? If we want to shoot the breeze and have a Skype conversation, Michael, I can do that because much of my work can be done asynchronously.
Yeah.
Now the key word is much, not all.
No.
Right? The money is still made 8 to 5 local time. Let's be honest.
Sure.
Okay.
Sure.
But I can deliver the service outside of those hours. If I'm rewriting somebody's LinkedIn profile, if I'm creating a strategy, I can do that in my shorts and t-shirt on the beach in Florida where I live, which is awesome. So that's a big thing, and along that line, it allowed me to move because, I am not location dependent. So I moved to Florida 2 years ago because of the sunshine.
Yes.
People ask me, why did you move here? Look up. It is gorgeous here. Come on. So that's cool. I love that. And then I would say, there's probably 100 other things that I could go through, but I want to share 2 more. The first one is learning. I get to learn from so many great people like yourself, Michael, that is just remarkable that frankly, because I'm a small business owner, because it's clear that I am not trying to sell anyone, I can connect with just about anyone because they're not concerned about me trying to sell them something.
Yeah.
That's pretty darn cool because before, I love Baird. I still I bleed a little bit of Baird blue, not as much as I did. Now it's Vengreso blue that I bleed mostly.
Yeah.
But if you work at a financial services company, people just, for a second, they just pause and like, is this person going to try to sell me financial services? Are they going to try to sell me insurance? So, working for myself, I love the fact that nobody questions that. I can just connect and that learning, the fact that I can learn from people is just awesome. In my own time, I'm fortunate, that being a small business owner, I get to mentor and be mentored by some of the best people, the smartest people on the planet. I mean, I'm looking at a book right now from my friend Phil M. Jones, Exactly What to Say, the magic words for influence and impact. And I'll see Phil tomorrow or Sunday at the NSA event. But I get to learn from Phil, not just by reading his book, but because we're peers and we're both small business owners, I can reach out to Phil and I can ask questions. So that's a big highlight for me. And then the last thing that's a highlight is that I now can choose the work that I do. I can choose the work that I do. So I can focus on what I'm really good at. And I can, now that I've joined forces with Vengreso, I've got 6 other people now that I can, say, hey, is this something any of you are interested in? And now instead of having to refer it out, I can refer it in and we can make money together. And I can still advise if that relationship is with me, I can still shepherd that relationship and get a small piece just for being a shepherd. But I can make sure that I don't damage that relationship by referring it out. And then the business stays here. And at the same time, if it's someone that I really don't want to do business with, I don't have to. I'm not forced to. It might mean that I work harder, that I find new business, or that, this month and instead of a glass of wine, I'm going to have a glass of water. But I can choose. And those are some of the highlights for me about being a small business owner.
They're spot on. Yeah, brilliant. I love those. I really, really love those. Fantastic. Wow, we could speak all day about many things, but we have to draw things a little bit closer to the end, unfortunately. So I have a couple more questions I want to ask you. And every single person we interview, we say, if there was one bit of advice that you would give aspiring business owners, what advice would that be?
Wow. One piece of advice. So many years ago, I was at a conference with Dan Rome, and somebody asked him a similar question. He's an author. He's written some great books. And they asked Dan, they said, what advice would you give for aspiring authors and speakers? And he said 2 words, second mortgage, right? Take out a second mortgage on your house because you're going to need the cash flow in order to make that work. And I would say really the same thing. So know that you're going to need more money than you expect.
Yeah.
Cash flow is going to be weird. And by weird, I mean some of your clients are going to pay you in 3 days. I had a client, literally, I would send them an invoice from my phone. They would pay it instantaneously and have a check for me by the time I walked to the other end of the building. Okay?
Yeah.
And I have clients that stroke me that, promise they're going to pay and end up going net 90. I can't control that. I mean, really, again, because I choose who I work with, most of my clients end up becoming my friends. You mentioned my motto, make the right friends first, do business last.
Which I love. Absolutely love that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's how I live. But that also means, right, Michael, if you owe me $200, how much am I really going to squeeze you for that $200? So it's a balance. So understand that, right? With the whole cash flow thing, understand that. That's the biggest advice I can give, that you need to make sure that you understand that. And then, if I may, just one other thing, and that is stay in your strength zone. Stay where you're best and try your best to outsource the rest. Understand that sometimes by outsourcing, you free yourself up to make more money. And this happens with me because, frankly, I don't iron my own shirts. Any of my dress shirts, I don't iron. I was in the military. I can make a great crease in my shirt.
I'm sure you can.
But it takes me forever, right? It takes me 20, 30 minutes to do a shirt because I'm such a darn perfectionist.
Yeah.
30 minutes, Michael, times 2 shirts is an hour.
Yes.
I bill a lot more than it costs for 2 shirts to be ironed. In fact, at $3 a shirt, that's $6 an hour plus then I have to, it takes, I can do 2 shirts. Plus it frustrates me. Plus there's setup time. So it takes me 2 hours to do 3 shirts. 2 hours to do 3 shirts. Now some might say, Phil, you're really slow, but here's the thing. Think about, as a small business owner, what is it that could cost you less than $10 that if you outsourced, you could get hours of your life back so that you could actually build your business. Whatever that is, I encourage you when you have the money, because certainly, like I said, there's times I had 40 cents in the bank. I was not taking my shirts to the dry cleaners when I had 40 cents in the bank. Okay. But when I can, I absolutely outsource the heck out of things so that I am free to do what I am best at.
Love it. Love it. Thank you so much. There's such great value in that. I really, really appreciate it. And thank you so much for your time and spending your quality time with us today. Really, really enjoyed it, Phil. So please share with us, how can people get in touch with you? Where would you like them to reach out?
Sure. So, well, first, you can find me anywhere on social media. I'm Phil Gerb, PhilGerb. You can find me on Vengreso.com. That's V as in Victor, E as in Edward, N as in Nice, G as in George, R as in Robert, E as in Echo, S as in Sam, O as in Oscar.com. Or, real easy, you can call me, 414-640-7445. Or if you're overseas and you want to talk to me, use Skype. Phil Gerb on Skype, PhilGerb. Don't be shy. Reach out. I'd be happy to talk to you. I'd love to connect. Let me know that you heard me on Michael's show. And if there's anything I can do for you, please let me know.
Oh, fantastic. This is a first because you are the first guest who's actually handed out their phone number on the show.
Well, it's everywhere on social. So here's the thing, Michael. I firmly believe that the reason that people don't call, that they don't give out their email address, because they think they're going to be flooded with calls. But the truth is people don't call. I had an article about leaving voicemails that got some 3 million views, and I got less than 50 phone calls. In fact, truth be told, Michael, less than 20 phone calls. Wrote the article 15 years ago. Okay. It's probably still in syndication somewhere because it got picked up by some job sites as, how to leave a good message for job seekers. Nobody calls. So here's the thing, folks. Make it easy for people to talk to you. Be approachable. My buddy Scott Ginsburg wears a name tag every day. I want to encourage you, folks, if you want to do more business, be more approachable. Make your goal to make friends first and do business last.
I love it that you finish with that quote. Brilliant. Thank you so much, Phil. I really loved speaking to you, listening to you, learning from you. Really appreciate your time, and hopefully one day we're going to meet in person. But for now, we will connect everywhere we see each other, and we'll continue the conversation, and we'll share this knowledge to the rest of the world. So appreciate your time. Take care, and we'll be in touch really soon.
Thanks, Michael.
Staying Alive UK. Share your story.